We are in Psalm 37 tonight, making our way through the book of Psalms. Um, Psalm 37. The word psalm, it comes from the Greek word psalmos, which means a poem sung with musical accompaniment. And as we've talked before, it actually seems to hint at the striking of strings. So it's probably like guitar music, something like that. The Hebrew word is Tehillim, which means praises. And so the book of Psalms is the hymn book of God's people, but it's also the hymn book because it's about Him. It's about Jesus. We look at the book of Psalms as soul music because music touches the soul. That's what emotions are a part of your soul. And we are finding about every kind of emotion possible expressed in the Psalms. The saying is that for every sigh, there is a psalm. When you are going through difficult times, read the Psalms. When you're going through times where you're questioning what's going on in your life, read the Psalms. When you're going through times that are just awesome and God is great, read the Psalms. They're wonderful insights both to what's going on in our lives as well as who God is. So the title of this psalm, it says that it is a psalm of David. And we know that this song is written when David was an old man. How do we know that? Because verse 25 in our psalm, Psalm 37 verse 25 says, he says, I have been young and now am old. And the point of this is, I like this. What he's going to talk to us about, what he's going to teach, these are things that are tested and true. I love the enthusiasm of youth. I love to listen to young people talk about their walk with the Lord. It's great. It's wonderful. But when it comes to certain difficulties in life, sometimes I prefer to talk to somebody who's been around a few blocks. You know what I'm talking about? Somebody who's been there, done that, and bought the book or wrote the book, you know. And so that's one of the wonderful treasures about this psalm. This is not when he's young and excited and new in God or anything. This is towards the end of his life when he writes this. They say that there are 3 signs of old age. The first sign is your loss of memory. And I can't remember what the other 2 are, so we'll keep going on. A bald, wizened little man was rocking in a chair on his porch, smiling happily. A passerby, charmed by his smile, came up to him and said, I couldn't help noticing how happy you look. What's the secret of a happy, long life? I smoke 3 packs of cigarettes a day, he said with a toothless grin. I drink a case of whiskey a week, eat fast food, and never exercise. No way. How old are you? I'm 26. Okay. That one went over pretty good. The department manager is a wise, friendly old man, and one day, during an interview in his office, he's asked, Sir, what is the secret of your success? And he said 2 words. And, sir, what are those? Well, it's right decisions. But how do you make right decisions? He said 1 word. And what's that word? The word is experience. That's how you make right decisions. Well, how do you get experience? 2 words. He says the 2 words are wrong decisions. Yeah. We're going to learn some golden truths from an old wise man who's made some mistakes and who has some experience. So keep that in mind as we're going through all of this. And I will remind you because I've had a couple of weeks to think about this. I was starting to prepare this last week, and I just there's no way with the cold that hit me. I just couldn't teach. And so I've been thinking about this for a week. So, Psalm 37, I'm calling it When the Wicked Prosper. Verse 1, do not fret because of evildoers, nor be envious of the workers of iniquity. See, one of the difficult things about following the Lord is when you watch the godless people around you and they seem to be doing better than you. That's a difficult thing. Here I am trying to do the right thing, and my life is tough. And they're doing all the wrong things, and they just seem to be having a blast. Psalm 73 is another great psalm that talks about this struggle that you and I face all the time. If you don't face it, you've got your head in the sand, because this is something we will all struggle with. How come this guy's getting off scot-free and getting away with everything? Do not fret because of evildoers. Remember, this is a guy at the end of his life. He's seen it all. He says, do not be envious of the workers of iniquity. Verse 2, for they shall soon be cut down like the grass and wither as the green herb. Trust in the Lord and do good. Dwell in the land and feed on his faithfulness. Trust in the Lord and do good. The principle here is about faith and action. It's not trust and snooze, but it's trust and obey. James writes, what does it profit, my brethren, if someone says he has faith but does not have works? Can faith save him? If a brother or sister is naked and destitute of daily food, and one of you says to them, depart, be in peace, be warm and filled, but you do not give them the things which are needed for the body, what does it profit? Thus also faith by itself, if it does not have works, is dead. Someone will say, you have faith and I have works. Show me your faith without your works, and I will show you my faith by my works. You believe that there is one God, you do well. Even the demons believe and tremble. But do you want to know, O foolish man, that faith without works is dead? The issue is not whether or not you are saved by faith or works. We're always saved by faith. It's not faith or works. It's faith that works. That's a genuine faith, a faith that produces good works, a faith that trusts in the Lord and does good. That's what it is to walk with the Lord, right? That's what we're all learning, is learning to trust him and to obey. We aren't saved because we obey. We're saved because we trust. But if my trust is genuine, then something's going to change in me. And I will need to take care of some things in my life because I realize who God is and I want his work in me. He says, verse 4, delight yourself also in the Lord, and he shall give you the desires of your heart. This is a great verse. I'll bet a lot of you know this verse. This is a verse that a lot of people have memorized. Delight yourself also in the Lord, and he shall give you the desires of your heart. Now, the problem is that some people look at this and they think that God's just a great big genie in the sky. So a man's walking down the beach, and he comes across an old bottle, and he picks it up, he pulls out the cork, and out pops a genie. And the genie says, thank you for freeing me from the bottle. In return, I will grant you 3 wishes. The man says, great, I have dreamed of this and I know exactly what I want. First, I want $1 billion in a Swiss bank account. Poof. There's a flash of light and a piece of paper with account numbers appears in his hands. He says, okay, that's okay. Next, I want a brand new red Ferrari right here. Poof. And there's a flash of light, a brand new red Ferrari appears right next to him. He says, okay, here comes the third one. I've been working on this. Finally, I want to be irresistible to women. And poof, and he turns into a box of chocolates. Rather than this being a verse that makes God your big genie, I do believe this verse is saying that if you put God first in your life, And he's going to give you new desires. He will give you the desires for the right things. And when you pray for those things, your prayers will be answered because you'll be praying for the right thing. Delight yourself in the Lord. That's what comes first. Delight yourself in the Lord, and he shall give you the desires. It's the right thing. It's about wanting the right thing. I have a quote from Oswald Chambers. He's a guy who knew something about praying. And he writes this: think of the last thing you prayed about. Were you devoted to your desire or to God? Determined to get some gift of the Spirit or to get at God? Your Father, quote, your Father knows what you need before you ask him. See, the point of asking is that you may get to know God better. Delight yourself in the Lord, and he will give you the desires of your heart. Keep praying in order to get a perfect understanding of God himself. See, that's what prayer is all about. It's not about you getting your bucket list granted. It's all about you getting to know God better. So that we learn to pray, your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. See, that's why sometimes he doesn't answer your prayers, because you're praying for the wrong thing. And you need to learn, I need to learn what he wants. I need to learn what he desires, how he wants to work in my life. And when I get those things in line, then you find that what you're praying for, these are the things that God's taking care of. What if God didn't give you what you asked for? Are you disappointed? What was more important to you in the first place, getting the thing or getting God? Prayer is about getting God's will done, not my will done. So when you look at this verse, what is it that gets your attention in this verse? Is it delighting yourself in the Lord, or is it giving you the desires of your heart? See, what's the thing that you're drawn to in this verse? See, that shows you where your heart's at. Because see, our heart ought to be about wanting what God wants. Verse 5, he says, commit your way to the Lord, trust also in him, and he shall bring it to pass. The word for commit is an interesting word. It's galal. It means to roll away, to roll down, to roll together. Spurgeon says this, it's roll the burden of life upon the Lord. Now, that's not always easy, because sometimes it seems like the burden of life is rolling after us. But see, David is saying, roll it back on the Lord. Don't let it roll over you. Roll it back. Commit your way to the Lord. Peter writes this, casting all your care upon him, for he cares for you. Commit your way to the Lord. Trust also in him, and he shall bring it to pass. Verse 6, he shall bring forth your righteousness as the light, and your justice as the noonday. Rest in the Lord, and wait patiently for him. Do not fret because of him who prospers in his way, because of the man who brings wicked schemes to pass. The word rest, there's a couple words in here. They're not what I expected. The Hebrew word for rest is damam, which means to be silent, to be still, to wait, to be dumb, as if you can't speak, or to grow dumb as if you're just getting silent. I wonder if sometimes we just talk too much. And I wonder if sometimes we need to learn to be a little more quiet. Rest in the Lord. Just shush a little bit. Shush a little bit. Ecclesiastes 5 says, do not be rash with your mouth, and let not your heart utter anything hastily before God. For God is in heaven, and you on earth. Therefore, let your words be few. when he says rest in the Lord, it's just like shush a little bit. Would you just gonna shh? It's like putting your baby down for the night. Just stop crawling around and chattering. Shh, rest, The word wait patiently, this one, I don't even get how they wait patiently. Just sounds like, oh, I'm just, okay, I'm going to just wait on the Lord very patiently. That's not what the word means at all. The Hebrew word is cool, means the root word means to twist, to whirl, to fear, to tremble, travail, to be in anguish, to be pained. The form of the word, the Hebrew grammar, it's called a hithpolel, which is a reflexive sense, which means this: writhing, suffering, torture, or to wait longingly. Do you just sense there's like a little bit of pain involved in this thing? To wait patiently for the Lord. It's not just, just to be at peace, but it's, Paul talks about praying, agonizing in prayer. Some of our translators talk about it laboring fervently in prayer, but the Greek word in Colossians 4 is, it says, Epaphras, who's one of you, a bondservant of Christ, greets you, always laboring fervently for you in prayers, that you may stand perfect and complete in all the will of God. That word for laboring fervently is agonizomai. We get our word agonize. Sometimes there is some twisting and turning, and sometimes it's tough in prayer as we're waiting. Waiting patiently, but it's hard. I'm kind of agonizing in prayer. Rest in the Lord. So like, shush. Wait patiently for him. It might not be easy. Do not fret because of him who prospers in his way, because of the man who brings wicked schemes to pass. Verse 8, cease from anger and forsake wrath. Do not fret. It only causes harm. Cease from anger and forsake wrath. And the lesson is about learning to deal with anger. In Psalm 4:4, you don't have to turn there, but David wrote something very similar. And Paul quotes this in Ephesians 4. He says, be angry and do not sin. Do not let the sun go down on your wrath, nor give place to the devil. I think it's kind of hard to go through life and not ever be angry. I don't know if I don't know if there's anybody ever alive that never gets angry. I get angry all the time. Do you get angry? No, Josh never gets angry. Does he ever get angry? Yeah, you can tell me. Yeah, okay. So you never sit with your sweetheart in Bible study because they'll give you away. I can't fake it. My wife knows I get angry. I'm terrible. It's kind of hard not to ever get angry. Did you see this one during the Super Bowl? Oh boy.
Hey, Bruce, you don't mind if I just take this last Coke, do you? Thanks, bye! Oh, you do mind. Sorry! Kind of. Hey, mini-can coming through! Dead end. Not awesome. Okay. Wow, so angry. Oh, you poor sad Hulk. Hold on. Wow, you have the greenest eyes.
Now, you might want having the Hulk to be on your Avenger team to fight galactic bad guys. But he's not the guy you want to be married to at home, is he? A tough old cowboy from South Texas counseled his grandson that if he wanted to live a long life, the secret was to sprinkle a little gunpowder on his oatmeal every morning. The grandson did this religiously to the age of 103 when he died. He left behind 14 children, 30 grandchildren, 45 great-grandchildren, 25 great-great-grandchildren, and a 15 hole where the crematorium hole used to be. A 15-foot hole. Anger's like that gunpowder. And you might think just a little bit every day doesn't hurt, but you know what? It hurts. It's not good when things blow up. And the problem, according to Paul in Ephesians 4, is not experiencing anger. He says, be angry and sin not. The problem isn't in experiencing the anger, it's what you do with the anger. Now, one of the problems that Christians run into, and they say, be angry and do not sin. Well, okay, I'll just put a cork on it. But the problem is that if you're going to push your anger down and hide it, we learn from observing human nature that that's what turns into depression. If you're going to just try to hide your anger, and you wonder why you wake up so sad sometimes. It's because you got all that burning anger inside. You're just trying to hold on to it. And sometimes the problem isn't that we conceal the anger, but it's how we express it that causes trouble, where we sin. That's when we're hurting others with our anger. It's hard because some people with their anger, they're just oblivious to the fact of it. I've seen that. I've seen this. Some people are just oblivious. They explode all over everywhere. They blow up the house, and then they're just quiet and peaceful and happy. And it's like, what's wrong? Why don't you come give me a kiss? Are you kidding? Because you're the big, bad, ugly Hulk, and you just destroyed the house, and you killed all the children, and you sold off our cars, and you just lost your job. Are you kidding? We think there's no problem? Yeah, there's a problem. You got to own it. And you need to deal with it. Paul says, don't let the sun go down on your wrath. The idea is, now see, some people take this overboard. I remember this one couple who are now divorced, that he took this so religiously that when they would have an argument at 10 o'clock at night, he would keep her up all night. All night. He would not let her go to bed. I'm serious, total serious. Deb remembers this. He would keep her up all night until she would finally give in. That's wrong. That's wrong. The point here is not to just, well, the sun goes down, at exactly 3 minutes. We've got to resolve this, No. But the point is that you do resolve it. You do deal with it. Learn how to vent your anger properly in healthy ways. Sometimes all you need to do is talk about it. Talk about what you're angry about. Sometimes there's things, I remember there's some things that are very helpful when there's nobody you can really talk to about it. You go out and exercise, burn off some of the steam, go buy a punching bag, punch on the punching bag, not the people around you. And when you don't do this, says verse 27, Ephesians 4, nor give place to the devil. See, when you don't deal with your anger, the enemy has established a beachhead in your life. It's like the troops on D-Day, and they've crossed the English Channel, and they establish a beachhead, except these are bad troops establishing ground on your life. That's Satan. Got to learn to deal with your anger. And when he says, verse 8, do not fret, it only causes harm. I was thinking, he's just changing the subject here. He's talking about don't fret. Don't be all worried and upset. Actually, the Hebrew word for fret here is talking about anger still. It's talking about heat, passion. And literally, it's the idea of stewing in your anger. That's the fretting he's talking about. Don't just stew on it. It only causes harm. Deal with your anger. Verse 9. For evildoers shall be cut off, but those who wait on the Lord, they shall inherit the earth. For yet a little while, and the wicked shall be no more. Indeed, you will look carefully for his place, but it shall be no more. The wicked shall be no more. And a simple lesson that I want to talk about that I have learned in my life. Don't have it down perfectly yet, but this is something I've definitely learned, is to learn to outlive them. because the wicked shall be no more. I remember years ago hearing an older pastor give advice to some of us younger pastors about how to handle your enemies. Because even in church, you have enemies. You have people who you don't get along with, or they don't get along with you, or they don't like you, or something like this. And his advice was, well, you just treat them like God does. And we're all waiting. Yeah. You treat them like God does. Outlive them. It's a little different context, but it's still the same principle. Jesus said, but he who endures to the end shall be saved. So you just outlive them. What do I mean? It requires patience. It requires endurance. You have to be careful about waging war against people you don't agree with. You don't have to let them walk all over you, but you do need to be patient with them because God will take care of their end. God will take care of it. Years ago, we were still a young church. This is a family camp. I don't know if you can recognize anybody in the picture. At first, the only person I could recognize in the picture was Dave. Here's a young Dave Dunnigan right here. You see, he's young. He's like a teenager almost. That was like, this was probably 15, 16 years ago. And at first, I thought the only people I recognize is Dave Dunnigan and David Cathers, who just off teaching the other class, because that's David right here. So this is how long ago this is. But then I realized, I think that's me, and I think that's Deb in the corner. I'm not sure. But everybody else in the picture, they aren't there anymore. They're not a part of our church. When we were a young church, we went through a couple of large splits. And I'm sure that a part of the reason for the splits was probably my own inexperience as a senior pastor. I won't argue with you on that if people want to say that it was my fault. That's fine. I'm fine. But I don't think it's right to say that it was all my fault, because there were some willful individuals who did not like some of the things that we were choosing to do. And they chose not only to leave the church, but to take others with them. One person even went through the church directory calling people up and wanted to know if they were still attending that cult. Man, that was hard. And especially because these were people I loved, and people that we started the church with. It was hard. One of my assistant pastors, my first assistant pastor at the time, he got caught up in the mess, and he left as well. It was tremendously hurtful. And it was around this time that I heard the advice of that older pastor, that, Richard, you have to learn to just outlive them. And what did that mean for me? Well, we're some 15 years after that, and I don't think we've had a big church split since probably 15 years or something. I don't know how long it's been. But you know what? I'm still here. They may not be, but I'm still here. The church is still here. And I got to tell you, we're doing quite well, I think. I think the church is thriving. I think there's people coming to know the Lord. People are growing in the Lord. I've learned a lot of lessons. And I hope that everybody involved has learned lessons as well. Learn to outlive your problems. Because in the end, God will take care of it. God will take care of it. The wicked shall be no more. I think that's a great way to think about this. Verse 11. But the meek shall inherit the earth and shall delight themselves in the abundance of peace. Does that sound familiar? The meek shall inherit the earth. That's what Jesus said in the Sermon on the Mount. That's one of his Beatitudes. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. How about that? He's quoting from Psalm 37. Verse 12. The wicked plots against the just and gnashes at him with his teeth. The Lord laughs at him, for he sees that his day is coming. I was thinking about this morning. You know, sometimes we are cringing and shrinking back from the plotting of wicked people. Oh my gosh, what are they going to do next? What are they going to do? How are they going to... I don't know. I'm so afraid of what they're going to do to me. And what does God do? Is God going, oh no, I don't know what they're going to do either. Oh no, oh no, oh no, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? No, God just laughs at him. He just laughs at it all. Why? Because he knows how it's all going to turn out. And in the end, friend, nobody gets away with anything. You don't get away with anything. I don't get away with anything. The person that's coming against you, they're not getting away with anything. We have to learn to take the long view. There's a street near where we live. It's called Longview. And if I was to drive up to the Looney's house, I'd drive up Longview. And every once in a while on my walk, I'd walk down Longview. Friends, we have to learn to take the long view of life and keep in mind what the end of the story is. And at the end of the story, God sees what that person's day is like, and he laughs at him. He just laughs at it. Verse 14, the wicked have drawn the sword and have bent their bow to cast down the poor and needy, to slay those who are of upright conduct. Their sword shall enter their own heart, and their bow shall be broken. A little that a righteous man has is better than the riches of many wicked. For the arms of the wicked shall be broken, but the Lord upholds the righteous. The Lord knows the days of the upright, and their inheritance shall be forever. Their inheritance shall be forever. When he says, verse 16, a little that a righteous man has is better than the riches of many wicked. Even though you might not have a lot in this life, you know what? It's better than a wicked person, because you, friend, have eternal riches. Eternal riches. I think it's one of the things we struggle with. I struggle with in this life. I confess it. You know, the world has us trained to think that our value is based on how much we're worth, on our net worth. And that the more money you make, the more important you are. But what I wonder is why we stress so much over stuff like gold when, friends, we're going to be walking on streets made out of gold. And that's not because heaven is the super bling place. It's because in the light of reality, the reality of heaven, gold ain't worth that much. Not before God. My gosh, he just uses it to pave the streets with, for Pete's sake. And here we place all this importance on it. You know, I've shared, over the last couple of months, I've shared this way too many times, this story of the video of Francis Chan doing his, Dave, could you come up here for a second? This video of Francis Chan doing the rope illustration. Anybody remember the rope illustration? Okay, yeah. So Dave, I thought maybe I would do it live, but I didn't have a long enough rope, but I do have an extension cord. So Dave, put your hand underneath that and you just walk with it. And so the idea is that this represents a timeline of your life. And you can go around the corner and just go around the corner, just keep going, just walk and it'll unroll all by itself because it knows how to do that. And see, this is the timeline of your life. And the Bible says that we are all designed to live. It's still going that far. I've got a really long extension cord. If you ever want to borrow a really, really long extension cord, are you going to come around full circle? No. Okay, so all the way over there. Now, the idea is that this is like your life. And this is your life from when you were born to when you die. But you and I are eternal beings, and our life goes on and on and on and on and on and on. And the crazy thing is that you and I worry so much about what happens between here and here, when you got a whole lot more you should be thinking about as well. And what you do between here and here will affect what happens here, the bigger part of life. The choices you make, the decisions you make on whether or not to follow God, whether or not to take Jesus seriously, affect where you're spending eternity. And here we worry so much about now when you're younger, when you guys are, we got younger, when people are younger, you don't worry as much about your 401k and all this kind of stuff. But some of us, we're getting a little long in the tooth. We're getting a little old. We start worried about retirement, and did I put away enough for my 401k? But I got to remind you, your 401k ends here. And I'm not saying that it's wrong to plan for the future. Oh, it's absolutely right to plan for the future. In fact, there's Solomon says a good man leaves an inheritance to his children's children. Oh yeah, it's right to be wise in how you handle your finances. I hope that God will figure out a way that I can leave some money to my grandkids. I hope that will work. That's my hope. But gang, you spend so much time worrying about this, you need to be thinking about that. Because just like you put money in your 401k that ends here, there's an account in heaven that you ought to be thinking about making sure you're making regular deposits in. Jesus said, do not lay up for yourselves treasures on earth where moth and rust destroy, where thieves break in and steal, where the stock market tanks. But lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust destroys, and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. Make sure, friends, that see the righteous person, their inheritance shall be forever. Forever. Make sure that you're investing in heaven. How do you invest in heaven? That's based on the rewards that God will give you for what you do on this earth. Getting into heaven is based on how you're trusting Him, whether you're trusting Him. But the rewards that you will enjoy forever are based on what you're doing, and God will reward you. So every time you're serving Him, every time you're loving on His people, don't you worry that God will reward you. God sees what you do. Eternal riches. Invest in the right bank accounts. Verse 19. It would be okay with me if you went and retrieved the end of forever and brought it back up here so that I'm afraid everybody's going to trip over forever. You don't have to wind it up necessarily, but I would appreciate that, my dear friend. That would be great, because I'd hate to cause anyone to stumble over forever. Verse 19. They shall not be ashamed in the evil time. These are talking about the righteous people. They shall not be ashamed in the evil time. And in the days of famine they shall be satisfied. But the wicked shall perish, and the enemies of the Lord, like the splendor of the meadows, shall vanish. Into smoke they shall vanish away. The wicked borrows, verse 21, the wicked borrows and does not repay, but the righteous shows mercy and gives. The righteous shows mercy and gives. And the question I want to encourage you to think about is give or take. Are you a giver or are you a taker? The wicked person gets a loan and doesn't pay it back. They're getting a loan, they need help, they need this, they need that, they get the credit cards and stuff, and then they never pay it back. People are giving to them. Everything's going towards them, and they never pay anything back. The righteous person, in contrast, not only pays their debts, but becomes a giver on top of that. See, it's not wrong to get a loan. It's not wrong to get a loan. But when you have a loan, be sure that you pay it back. And it's not wrong. It's not the end of the world when people, hit these crashes and they have to go into bankruptcy. But I want to encourage you, friends, if you've ever been through bankruptcy, make sure that you pay back your creditors eventually, because that's what you're supposed to be doing. The righteous person pays their debts, and they also become givers. Paul wrote this, owe no one anything except to love one another, for he who loves another has fulfilled the law. There's only one thing you really ought to owe people, and that's to love them. I owe this to you. I owe this to you. In fact, on Sunday, I know we're supposed to be doing Luke 11, which starts off with the Lord's Prayer. We'll do that next week because this Sunday is Valentine's Day. And so I'm going to do a message on love. Why not? I'm going to talk about true love on Sunday. I'm excited about it. But that's what we owe each other. That's what we owe each other is love. But the rest of it, you shouldn't owe anybody anything. Because when you're walking with the Lord, you should be the one lending. You should be the one giving. Maturity as a Christian is about changing the direction that the money flows. Listen to me. Maturity as a Christian is about changing the direction that money flows. Paul wrote in Ephesians 4:28, "Let him who stole steal no longer, but rather let him labor, working with his hands what is good, that he may have something to give to him who has need." See, before you become a Christian, the whole thing is about getting. I got to get more money. I got to build up my stuff, my treasure. I got to collect more treasure. And if I can't get it the right way, I'll take what's yours. And Paul says, look, if you used to steal before you're Christian, stop it. Let him who stole steal no more. In fact, go get a job. Why? So that you become a giver to those who really have needs. See, that's God's heart for his people. Is that the flow goes the other way. And it's not just about money. It's even the things that you do. Peter and John entered the temple one day, and they were confronted by a beggar that's been there every day for years. And the guy's asking for money. And they kind of just it hits him that day. And he says, alms for the poor, alms for the poor. And in Acts chapter 3, Peter said, silver and gold I do not have. But what I do have, I give you. In the name of Jesus Christ of Nazareth, rise up and walk. And the man was healed. The man was healed. Are you a giver or a taker? God wants us to be the right givers. The righteous shows mercy and gives. Verse 22. For those blessed by him shall inherit the earth, but those cursed by him shall be cut off. Steps of a good man are ordered by the Lord, and he delights in his way. Though he fall, he shall not be utterly cast down, for the Lord upholds him with his hand. Though he fall, he shall not be utterly cast down. David is not saying that a righteous man never has a difficult day in his life, because that's not what he's saying at all. He's saying there will be days when you will fall, when you will go through difficult times, but it will only be temporarily. It will not be utterly cast down. Righteous people go through hard times, but in the end, God carries them through. Verse 25, here's that verse we mentioned at the beginning. I have been young and now am old, yet I have not seen the righteous forsaken, nor his descendants begging bread. So, sorry. Keep in mind, friends, this is the long view. This is like walking up to the top of Raymond Hill. That's long view leads up to the top of Raymond Hill. So you can have a view of Orange County. This is the long view. This is the view from a man who's lived a long time. He says, I have not seen the righteous forsaken, nor his descendants begging bread. When I sit down and think about it, David would say, and he's he could be close to 70 by now. And he looks back over his whole life. And you know what? I haven't seen one righteous person ever forsaken by God. You and I need to keep trusting. This is the advice of the aged David. Keep trusting the Lord. The Lord will not let you down. It's hard because when you're in a difficult time, you think, what good is this doing me? You say, just like at the beginning, I'm fretting myself because of evildoers. How is this choice I've made to follow God any good when I'm having such a rough time and they're getting away with it all? David says, you know what, buddy, at the end of my life, after all these years, it's worth it. God has never forsaken the righteous. And look at all the words that David has used for trusting the Lord. In verse 3, he used the word trust. In verse 4, he says, delight yourself in the Lord. In verse 5, he's talking about commit your way or roll off your troubles to the Lord. Verse 7, about resting in the Lord and about waiting patiently on the Lord. There's going to be plenty of difficulties in life, friends. But David says that he's learned that the only way to survive is to trust the Lord. And think about what has gone through, what David has lived through. This is the guy that faced Goliath when he was just a kid. He faced Goliath. And through most of his life, he was fighting the Philistines. And even after David became popular, Saul, his boss, his father-in-law, became jealous, and he starts trying to assassinate David. When David becomes king, when Saul dies, David becomes king, but he's only king of the tribe of Judah, and he's fighting with the rest of Israel for 7 years. Finally, they make him king. And he still has wars to the end of his life with the Philistines, the Moabites, the Ammonites. His son Absalom rebelled against him and ran him out of town. He was betrayed by one of his closest friends, Ahithophel. And even as David was being run out of town, all these people are piling on David, like a guy named Shimei, who stood by the side of the road, and as David's leaving town, just broken over what's happened. And Shimei's throwing rocks and yelling curses at David. David's gone through some pretty rough things, probably far rougher than most of us have ever gone through. And he says, look, I have never seen the righteous forsaken. This is the long view, friends. This is the long view. I've never seen the righteous forsaken. It is not easy to trust the Lord through our difficulties, but it is so worth it. Verse 26. He is ever merciful and lends, and his descendants are blessed. Depart from evil and do good and dwell forever. Now you're going to see him repeating some of the same principles over and over through this. For the Lord loves justice and does not forsake his saints. They are preserved forever, but the descendants of the wicked shall be cut off. The righteous inherit the land and dwell in it forever. The mouth of the righteous speaks wisdom, and his tongue talks of justice. The law of his God is in his heart. None of his steps shall slide. The wicked watches the righteous and seeks to slay him. The Lord will not leave him in his hand, nor condemn him when he is judged. Wait on the Lord and keep his way, and he shall exalt you to inherit the land. When the wicked are cut off, you shall see. Now, wait on the Lord. Some translations say wait for the Lord. I want to call this principle the waiter, and I use that on purpose. Some translations say wait for the Lord, but I like the New King James here, where it says wait on the Lord, because that's what a waiter does. A waiter waits on you. It doesn't wait for you. They wait on you. That's what a good restaurant waiter or waitress will do. They will wait on you. They look to see what you require, and they hasten to do it. One day at Polly's, Dave Rittner and I were having breakfast, and we decided to ask our waitress, Peggy. We asked her how, because we were just blown away that, I put my coffee cup down and I had just finished drinking the last drop, and she'd show up 10 seconds later and with her pot and refill it. And we were just like, how do you do that? How do you know to do it? Well, she says, well, I've trained myself to watch for people to tip their cup all the way back. And when they've tipped their cup all the way back, I know they're done. And so I come back with some more. She was attentive to us, attentive to what our needs were. Now, we are to wait, be waiters and waitresses on the Lord, to sense what he is wanting. Here's an awesome
PBS
waiter.
has always done their best to keep us happy here.
They have been great.
They've been so nice to us, and they're always coming up with new ways to make us feel happy and comfortable here. And today, they have gone a step further. This blew me away. But check it out, Andy. I don't know if you heard anything about this, but you and I are now getting waiter service here on the show.
During the show, our own waiter.
We get our own waiter here on the show, and I'm told that we can order anything we want. They gave us these menus right here, and it's absolutely incredible. Let's bring our new waiter out, Craig.
Right.
Craig, are you here?
Hey. Wow. This is great.
How are you, gentlemen?
I have to say, Craig, this is fantastic. I can't believe we get to do this.
Absolutely. What can I get for you guys?
I'm going to go first. I'll take a dirty gin martini. Use Heyman's Reserve if you can. And I'd like a bottle of Gerolsteiner sparkling water with lemons and limes. And then let's see. I'll start with the saffron-infused lobster risotto.
Okay.
Do you want to write this down?
No, it's all up here.
All right. All right, then I'll have the tagliatelle pasta with the oxtail ragu and a glass of the 93 Bruno Giasco Falvata Reserva.
I know that one. Got it.
Okay. And you're sure you don't want to write this down?
I'm absolutely sure. How about you, Mr. O'Brien?
Okay. Guess I'll start off with an old-fashioned with Basil Hayden's bourbon and exactly 3 splashes of orange bitters.
Right.
I'd like the red endive, shaved fennel and Parmigiano Reggiano with the anchovy date vinaigrette on the side.
On the side. Right.
I'd feel better if you wrote this down.
It's not necessary.
Okay. Then I'll have the hand-stamped marjoram-infused egg pasta with braised veal, along with a side order of Brussels sprouts and pancetta, sautéed in Ligurian olive oil, and for wine, the Vino Nobile Sangiovese 2011 from Toscana.
Got it. All set.
All right.
Do you want to repeat that back to me?
I don't. I want to put these orders in. I'll be right back with your food, guys.
That guy's incredible.
He's amazing.
I didn't get any of that. This is my only option. I'm a failure!
Bic pens. Maybe you should write it down.
There were 6 things very wrong with that sketch.
Yeah.
Look for them. He put on a wig before he killed
A
himself.
suicide wig.
Suicide wig.
A handy suicide
There's a
wig.
cliff right outside our studio.
There sure is.
Interesting. All right. And this is all for Bic Pen, which isn't
Yes.
paying us anything.
It felt like a pen ad.
All right.
So how do you wait on the Lord? Do you pay attention to what he's saying? Maybe you got to write it down a little bit. Verse 35, wait on the Lord. Be a waiter. Verse 35, I have seen the wicked in great power, spreading himself like a native green tree, yet he passed away, and behold, he was no more. Indeed, I sought him, but he could not be found. Mark the blameless man and observe the upright, for the future of that man is peace. The future of that man, of the upright man, is peace. There's peace ahead. And again, friend, this is the long view of things. It doesn't mean that the blameless, upright man will never encounter difficulty. It means that in the end, his future will be one of peace. We've talked before about Horatio Spafford. He was a successful Chicago lawyer, close friend of evangelist Dwight Moody. He invested heavily in real estate, but in the Chicago fire of 1871, it wiped out all of his holdings. His son had died shortly before the disaster. Spafford and his family decided they desperately needed a rest, so in 1873 they planned a trip to Europe with his wife and his 4 daughters. While in Great Britain, he also hoped to help Moody and Sankey with their evangelistic tour. Last-minute business caused him to delay his departure, but he sent his wife and his 4 daughters ahead on the SS Via du Havre as scheduled, promising to follow in a few days. On November 22nd, their ship was struck by the English ship Lochern, and it sank in 12 minutes. Several days later, the survivors landed in Cardiff, Wales, and Mrs. Spafford cabled her husband the brief message, and that's a copy of the cable message. And in it she wrote, "Saved alone, what shall I do?" All of their daughters were lost. When Spafford made the ocean crossing to meet his grieving wife, he sailed near the place where his 4 daughters had sunk into the ocean. And there in the midst of his sorrows, he wrote these unforgettable words, which we still sing. "When peace like a river attendeth my way, when sorrows like sea billows roll, whatever my lot, thou hast taught me to say, it is well with my soul. Though Satan should buffet, though trials should come, let this blessed assurance control, that Christ hath regarded my helpless estate, and hath shed his own blood for my soul." That's the long view of things. He knew that Jesus' blood had assured that he and his family would be together in heaven. And he was able to find peace in the midst of tragedy that I don't think any of us have ever, or would ever, or will ever experience. Because you have the long view of things. There will be peace. Verse 38. But transgressors shall be destroyed together. The future of the wicked shall be cut off. But the salvation of the righteous is from the Lord. He is their strength in the time of trouble. And the Lord shall help them and deliver them. He shall deliver them from the wicked and save them because they trust in him. Now, David is talking about salvation from his earthly, physical enemies. But you just can't help it. I just can't help but see the hint of the New Testament doctrine that we are saved by faith. Did you see that? It says, and he will save them because they trust in him. You and I are not saved by our good works. We are saved by believing in the gracious work of God, the fact that Jesus died on the cross for us. With that, let's just stand and pray. Let's stand and pray. And so, Father, I would pray, Lord, for any of my beloved friends here that might be going through difficult times. Lord, help us to take a walk up Longview and to catch a glimpse of what's ahead, of to know of your faithfulness, of your grace, of the peace of eternity. Help us to trust you. Help us to wait on you. Help us to rest in you. Thank you. In Jesus' name. And everybody said, amen. All right. God bless you.